We are back and ready to continue our day. We've got 2 more matches left for you, and we are going to be able to check out who is going to be relegated and where everyone else is going to stand by the end of the day here in the European Grandmasters. And there's still a whole extra group of players to work out later on, as Americas will be following us, as is often and always the case. But we do have our matchup coming up. It's going to be RDU versus Kolento in our 4th match of the day, Sottle, and another super important one, as the outcomes not only have an impact on Kolento himself, but also on all the other players in that lower portion of Division B.
Yeah, this is now, if you want to look at it this way, the most important match in Division B, because it's the last match in Division B. So it's the one where everything finally gets solved. And I'm going to be honest, I was hoping we were going to have our customary 8-minute break there so that we could do a bit more double checking on all this stuff before we had to say it on camera. But because of all of our technical delays and issues that we've had during the day, we decided to cut that one short so you guys can just see as much of the action as quickly as possible as you can. But that means maybe there's a mistake sneaking into our workings here somewhere, but still we're going to. So I believe the scenario is as it stands based on the results that we've had. And by the way, the results that we've had so far have lent us towards, even as they stood at the start of the day, the most complicated scenario we could have ended up being in as we got to the end. That now, if Kolento wins this last series against RDU, he secures his own safety, at least into the relegation bracket. And that means Pavel and Zim will be the 2 players that are automatically relegated. So that takes Zim from the point of having a win and in to playoffs in our previous series to being automatically relegated. That's how close this bracket was. So again, Kolento win, Pavel and Zim relegated. If RDU wins, we believe that means that Kolento and Pavel are relegated. So there's a common theme that you might be noticing there, that currently we believe that in either remaining scenario, Pavel is unfortunately relegated from Grandmasters.
Yeah, a real shame, as Pavel, just since we've seen him in the early days, just forever a character to watch. And obviously he managed some incredible things in Hearthstone, becoming a world champion, of course. But I've no doubt this won't be the last we'll see of him anyway, but he is going to be, at least from what we know, out of Grandmasters. But for now, let's focus on this match. RDU versus Kolento. And again, RDU with this Druid that he has more confidence in than Warlock. We're going off the Twitters.
He does, yeah. But it's rare on Twitter that you kind of just have to concede the argument to a tweet that was so good. But that was the situation that RDU was in last night. So I don't know where he stands anymore. But personally, I'm just fascinated to see Kolento play Quest Warlock against Demon Hunter with his life on the line. Based on the scenario we saw before, does he keep the quest this time? Does he throw it away again? Has he learned? Has someone told him? Have people tried to tell him and he still thinks he's right and everyone else is wrong? Exactly. Like, literally anything could happen. I need there to be Quest Warlock versus Demon Hunter in this series, Raven.
Well, I can tell you it's not going to be this match, as there is a Demon Hunter, but it's on Kolento's side, and RDU is going to have this rogue. And once again, we talked about it a little bit in the Tice matchup, but RDU does have this questing adventurer with the secret rogue list, so we'll see how that pays off. But again, if it's just a little bit too big for Demon Hunter to deal with, it can cause some havoc in this matchup.
We see a Miscreant coming into the hand there for RDU off the top as well, which is huge. I think that is the card in the matchup from the rogue side. But this start is now quite aggressive from Kolento with the double 1-drops. It was looking slightly clunky outside of that, but Kolento now has a lot of power backing him up.
Yep, pretty reasonable overall. And again, just one of the benefits you have from playing Demon Hunter is if you have that second 1-drop, you don't always have to coin it out because it fits pretty well in with your hero power, unlike every other class in the game. So he's able to smooth out the curve a little bit more and still retain that coin, which is, of course, very, very nice looking into the future there. Does have to now consider this secret. He can effectively, if it is ambush, just play the battle mage and then kill off the ambusher. He could also use the double twin slice to kill it off cleanly and keep a 2-2 on the board.
Yes, which is certainly worth considering. He does have coin for Glavebound, which would really like to keep one of those twin slices in his hand right now for a big tempo swing earlier. It does secure the board a lot better against Seal Fate on turn 3 from RDU.
Right.
It means you get to continue to push damage with at least one of your minions.
Yeah, I think I like it, honestly. Like, why not just give him the most awkward board to deal with right now, instead of planning for a swing turn or a power turn later? I think it might be more beneficial to just go off now.
Oof. Ugly looking stuff here for RDU. There's a very
Miscreant Shadow
bizarre
Step?
world. Yeah. There's a
Yeah, I knew
very
it.
weird world where you just play Miscreant and Shadow Step at this turn, just to be able to get the full value out of the second one on the following turn. You just saw Twin Slice get used, so you're probably not going to get Satyr Overseer Twin Sliced on the following turn, but you could still get Satyr Overseer coin hero powered.
So many options.
Initially, I was looking at Evil Miscreant pass, but the problem is you just get farmed and you have the same issue the turn after, right? Like, that's the biggest issue with just saying, oh, I'll just play the 1/4, because normally the health on that causes a bit of a problem, but it just doesn't for Kolento next turn. So I think it might just have to be the Evil Miscreant into Shadow Step. Oh, he's going for ambush instead. Okay, let's see how this one plays out. Oh, good pickup there for Kolento.
Yeah, this is certainly a scary world to live in against Satyr Overseer, because obviously if Satyr Overseer were to come down here, it's just coin hero power, which Kolento would want to be doing anyway to activate it, and then one of the 2/2s takes care of the ambush token. Problem here for Kolento is that he has to pick the spell before he sees the secret resolve. Always a bit irritating.
I do like the skull, though. I think with the way it shapes up in the hand as well, he can get to it relatively quickly. One of the cards is coin he has to get through, of which he's probably going to use with Glaive Bound at some point. And then also the Spectral Sight will just shift the cards. Obviously, the drawn cards will go on the right, the skull will move to the left. So there is only really the cane that he has to get rid of, which again, I think will be fine for next turn.
You fell right into my trap. Time grows short.
Extremely irritating coin hero power here, though.
It is, but it doesn't leave him stranded, right?
Yeah.
It's not as good as he would like it to be, obviously, but it doesn't leave him stranded. He has Kane next turn, and then he can even just honestly Spectral Sight for 1 if he really needs to. It's still fine. It's not good, but it's fine. I think it is important, though, he doesn't just lose 2 1-drops to this this secret guy.
Agreed.
Ugh.
That's a pretty good pickup, honestly.
It is, it's just he can't... Well, okay, I guess it depends on the lackey, actually.
That's a pretty good pickup to
Okay,
me.
yeah, okay, I'm back with you. That's a pretty good pickup. If it was that or Faceless, I think it'd be really strong.
So, thinking about his Miscreant activators, but I think he should feel okay with just Kobold this turn into Shielded Galakron and then use the new lackey that he gets from Shielded Galakron to be his combo activator on the following turns. He could even just drop the Kobold lackey, Shadow Step it back into his hand right now, and then have a Miscreant swing turn next turn.
It is what I was looking at initially. Because it's not as if it's not like a rough turn, like you've got a 0-mana Kobold lackey. That's just insane.
Yeah.
Never mind with the fact he obviously procs the Evil Miscreant, but
yeah.
I still think he can just do this and say, well, if you hero power this, fine, I'll just play Shielded Galakron next turn.
Agreed.
And also, if it doesn't get killed, he still has the option of doing the Shadow Step if he really wants it.
Yeah, how often does this not get killed, though? Demon Hunter doesn't really play 4-drops, and the one that they do has charge/rush anyway. I guess that charge could just go straight to your face, and that way it does stay alive, but yeah.
Super frustrating for Kolento, of course, that he just rips another skull straight after picking one from Vulpera. But sometimes that's just the way it is.
Ooh. Suddenly, this hand just got pretty spicy looking. Yep. Questing Adventurer and some Shadow Steps next turn. Maybe one turn further down the line if RDU wants to greet these Miscreants first, which I could totally get on board with as well. Just depends how much pressure he gets put under right now, I guess.
Yeah, and it is important as well as, although there's the massive greed option, you need to make questing as big as you can, as early as you can in the turn you play it. So even if he goes for the extra greed, it will only really, apart from Titanic Lackeys, add the extra one, right, to the health of the questing.
No, it's significantly bigger, right? If you play a Lackey into Miscreant this turn, and then potentially even just dagger up if you can get away with it, and then you have all your Shadow Steps available to you, plus 2 Lackeys in hand, plus 2 more cards that you've drawn. I think over the course of 2 turns you would get a much bigger initial Questing Adventurer.
I grow impatient.
But again, it just depends on how much pressure he's facing down on the other side, because that just might not be a possibility.
Job done.
You lack style. Luckily, you have
Ooh. Transmogrifier, you say?
That's just... Oh, that's getting rushed every day. Wait, is he not going to try and sacrifice that off? Okay.
Step the Miscreant, replay the Miscreant? Sure. Leaves him with Questing Adventurer plus 3 Lackeys in his hand at the end of the turn. Seems strong. Takes board right now, pretty dominantly.
Ooh. 2 Ethereals as well.
Yep.
Can open up some more options if you look at backstabs, preps, and such.
Daring escapes. Ooh.
Oh, wait a minute.
Step your Questing Adventurer back to your hand again.
Demons.
Okay, Kolento did have some choices here. He could have just hard drawn with Skull, although it would have felt terrible, of course. The Shadow Weaver just was not good enough. But having the Glade Bound, pretty solid there. But here's the...
Your Pharaoh Cat is now... Wait, what?
What?
A Shenvala?
Okay. With 2 Ethereal Lackeys in hand.
2 Ethereal Lackeys in your hand? Okay.
Nothing.
Prep. Spell you can cast for free with prep. Just gonna rip it now. Fine, be boring. See if I care. What the? Hello?
You just go nuts now, though, right? Surely this is... Oh, I'm going to hold this for my Shenvala.
Yeah,
you just go absolutely nuts in this questing. Should get close to ending the game.
Agreed. Kolento has to just rip the skull here, I think. Frozen Shadow Weaver doesn't solve any problems. You're just going to not get hit in the head for 1 turn, but that thing's going to get so big next turn that you aren't going to be able to deal with it anyway. It's
the issue, isn't it? It's not the Van Cleef issue, because it gets bigger the longer you leave it up, so freezing it doesn't often change too much. Now Kolento's like, wish I had Quest Adventurer now.
Yeah, some Demon Hunter listed used to play it.
Some still do. I played Quest Adventurer Rogue earlier today and got beat by someone else's Adventurer, and it was a Demon Hunter, not Rogue. I was very annoyed.
Unlucky. This is a pretty insane Skull outcome, though. Chaos Strike for 2, Twin Slice for 2, Hero Power for 1, plus the 1 on board, killing the Questing Adventurer, and developing board with the Satyr Overseer at the same time. I think that's about as good as it could have got, right?
And I guess there's the question, right? The Pilfer was very good, but it meant either you didn't cast Titanic Lackey or play Titanic Lackey that turn.
I was thinking I would have prepped the I-Beam and played the Titanic Lackey, like in a heartbeat.
Because
I
again, we
understand,
talk about
I understand there's a Shemvala in his hand, which, you know, is super tempting to get multiple greeds out of, but, like, you just had a questing that was winning the game immediately.
Yeah, and health is king versus Demon Hunter, isn't it? So
Yeah, I liked his ordering up to that point, because he can just cast the Pilfer, and then if he gets a more expensive spell off the Pilfer, the prep might end up being useful for that. It wasn't the case because he just got I-Beam, which cost 1 anyway, but I think at that point I would have just used the prep and gone in.
I like Straza, not the worst shout, honestly.
Okay.
Choose soon.
There's a mixture of, right now, it does a reasonable sum of damage to Kolento, and also, even if it's held and not played next turn, there's a world where either you can use it on himself and then evolve it or taunt it or something, or rush it with a lackey. So it's got options. I think it had more options than the other cards going forward, so I do like this pick.
Alright, fair enough.
Wait, he doesn't want to dirty tricks. Okay.
I guess he's thinking his 2/7 probably lives this turn, and if he draws a spell, then he's got those 3 spells in hand to get value. Particularly if he just ends up jamming Galakron next turn, right? Then he's drawing 3 cards over the course of the turn.
Kolento, a long way away. Somehow, RDU still on 28 health, which is a bit of a problem when you start to look at Metamorphosis. Whenever Metamorphosis is around, you start to go, right, how much health is he on, and do I just kill them over a couple of turns? Well, not really here for Kolento.
Yeah, the answer is a resounding no when they're at 28.
Seems pretty solid here, actually. Double trade, just Alex.
Just Alex your opponent and hit them.
Yeah? Yeah? Well, you probably killed off their battlefield, right?
Sure.
I think it's just fine.
Yeah, now the Shemvala dream is dead. RDU just going to prep out this dirty tricks, look for some extra refill to be able to end the game on the following turn.
Yep, there's still Attack Witchy Lackey, there's still Galakron, there's still all these things, that Blackjack Stunner for emergencies. There's a lot of options RDU has considering how low his hand is. Obviously the Galakron helping a lot with that hand size issue next turn.
But there's also Kolento just actually not really in too big a trouble against this Alex Straza, at least immediately, because of the Frozen Shadow Weaver Skull turn that he had. He can now continue to develop alongside that, with the Umberwing at least.
What is RDU on, Galakron-wise?
I believe it was 2. It is 2, yeah.
Okay. As in, 2 total invokes?
Correct.
Okay. Because some people say, like, level 2. And it's like, well, right, but which part of level 2? You know what I mean? Clean this up, not freeze it out with the Frozen Shadow Weavers. Use that Clay Band Adept now.
Sure. It's a pretty huge board swing considering he started the turn with nothing in play against an 8/8 and he spent 6 of his 9 mana on drawing cards.
I wonder now, though. It can be a Togwaggle turn with the wand.
Yep.
If that gets Kronks, then we start to see fireworks next turn for RDU.
Ooh, that is an ugly mess of options. No secret to play with them, and I believe he's 1 dirty tricks, 2 ambushes down at this point, so there's only 1 card remaining in his 12 that even activate those. Can find a secret from a spell lackey somehow?
Is it cold in the shadows?
Suddenly, brick by brick, Kolento just building his way back into this game.
Yeah, pretty incredible, honestly. Just this, the Quest Adventure getting taken down, and this just getting completely slowed down here from Kolento is it's pretty impressive. RDU does need to still work out how he's going to end this game. He does have a lot of health to work with, so he's got some level of time, especially knows that where he's living in a post-metamorphosis world right now.
Yeah, and honestly, I think you might have to reverse that statement. I think Kolento's the one who has to work out how he's going to end this game, because he only has 4 cards left, and the big damage dealer, the Metamorphosis, is gone from his deck. So he needs to find some way of getting lethal in the next 4 or 5 turns without the direct damage available. Kane is gone, Metamorphosis is gone, so he just needs to build and stick a board here.
Not cast many Demon Hunter games where they play 3 Skull of Gul'dans.
Yeah.
Still, though, that is a ton of damage from Kolento being aimed at RDU. He can't quite get his Galakron fully active, can he?
Not with the mana available, no. Would have been a different story if he'd have hit that Shield of Galakron off the wand. Again, Spell Lackey into Secret. I think that's potentially the most powerful thing that can happen here to RDU. Let's get the Rush Lackey instead, though.
It's good, though. It means he can trade with this Shield of Galakron.
Right.
And then he can backstab the Satyr as well.
Choose soon.
Can evolve the Tog now. Not horrible.
Could also value trade the shield and then evolve it, but yeah, it doesn't seem better when you're backstabbing the 4-2 anyway, which is the best value trade.
I'm going to go for the evolve on the Togwaggle. I'm going to play out the stunner and rush that instead.
Okay. Does have that Spell Lackey in hand now that could find a secret at least for the second Blackjack Stunner, but now RDU has fully invoked that turn. He's most likely just on the Galakron plan, and he does still have Kronks in his deck, which means he's drawing 4 cards next turn from 11. That could be Kronks. That's a pretty good outcome.
Is he just dead?
Is he just dead? 6,
So there's
7,
1,
8.
2, 3 more damage from Altreus. Puts him to 16. That puts 3...
No, I don't think so,
No,
right?
he's not
Still,
quite.
still
No,
some
no,
way
not
off.
quite.
Yeah.
Close, though.
Mhm.
Get in there, and he gets to clear the board, which is a huge deal. Mystery choice?
Mystery choice? Fairly sure you're not super interested in Feast of Souls.
Maybe Consume Magic's just good.
You always mystery
yeah.
choice.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to get an I-Beam, then why not?
Imagine not mystery choicing, Raven.
Just the point of where next turn, he won't have to outcast it to draw a card if he doesn't want to. And also, there might just be a point where you've just got to silence an awkward minion.
The natural Kronks draw is a disaster for RDU.
Yeah. Worst draw in the deck at that turn.
I think so.
Imagine the Kronks coming down here, clears the board, RDU gets the armor, gets the weapon. Not going to happen this time.
Okay, Devoted Maniac is good. Shadow Step prep.
Flick! We just say names of the cards coming out. Bamboozle!
So he can prep the Bamboozle, still play the Blackjack Stunner. Devoted Maniac, Flick to clear up a large amount of the board state.
Does he, like, have to bounce the Shadow Fiend then if he's bouncing something?
What's a Shadow? Battle Fiend?
Oh, Battle Fiend, Shadow Fiend.
Okay.
Ugh. I was looking at Shadow Weaver and I merged the cards.
Needs to find himself a Gallywix, Raven.
If only. Yeah, the only real minion worth bouncing here.
Don't let the door hit you.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what happened, because RDU does not get the chance to react to this Faceless Lackey.
Style. Luckily,
Transmogrifier again!
door hit you.
What's going on?
It's just Blackjack stunnering a 1-1. Second Warglaives does not add any damage.
There's only 7 available.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like Kolento can trade the board down. Doesn't really have the health for it right now.
This I-beam, though, if there was any way for Kolento to stop all incoming damage apart from the face, this I-beam would actually end up playing around weapon plus Kronks for lethal at the end of the game. But I don't even think he can get that far.
The bamboozle, Sol.
Frozen Shadow Weaver, the flick.
Demons?
Yeah, there's no way, not without smacking stuff with your Warglaives.
Yeah.
Is it cold?
To a certain extent, not without smacking stuff with your minions.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, it's a bamboozle that's live.
Yep.
And now Kolento knows it's bamboozle as well.
Kolento's going to know he's dead to Kronks here, but there's nothing he could have done about it. And even though it was a bad draw off the top, he's now in the position, his RDU, where he would rather have it than not, even if he does have to pay 6 for it.
Yeah, most importantly, he got the flick even without the Kronks. He got the cards that allowed him to just about have a decent chance at surviving, and he is going to take the victory here. Going up 1-0 versus Kolento with that Rogue versus Demon Hunter. And although the Questing Adventurer didn't just auto-win the game, it did give Kolento a problem to deal with, and he had to put a lot into it to actually kill that off. So, again, already you see that the power of Quested Adventure and Demon Hunter. It's a card that, if landed, can't be ignored, and it will soak either resources or health, because a lot of the time you are swinging weapons into it to kill it off.
Yeah, I think RDU could have made it a card that did just immediately win the game.
I agree.
If he'd have gone Prep I-Beam Titanic Lackey, he makes, what, an 8-10 instead of a 6-6, which is the world of difference in terms of your opponent being able to kill it. And he still had Galacrond in his hand at that point already, so it's not like he's all in with his hand at that point. Like, if that one push doesn't win the game, he still has Galacrond reset at some point anyway. So I think I would have liked to have seen him do that in the early game. But the way he navigated those last couple of turns, with all that mess of 0 mana nothing coming off the Galacrond, where he got Prep and Shadow Step, off his Galacron draws, and then he was able to deftly pick apart the board. Very similar, honestly, to I think it was the Priest versus Rogue game against Pavel, where he did end up getting scammed by the Waxer Dreads anyway. But he had a very similar turn where, with the pressure very highly on, he had to piece by piece pick apart a very complex board state with all the tools that he had. RDU again showing that he is very adept at making those things happen under pressure.
Yeah, really, he's been looking really confident lately, honestly. And although he took some questions earlier on in Grandmasters about his dedication to Standard recently, as he has been streaming a lot of Battlegrounds, he reinforced and just said, like, no, I've actually been playing a ton of Standard, and I think his play, especially the last few weeks, have really showed that off. He has been getting the intricate things, down and pulling off some really strong plays and some game-winning plays as well. But we are going to be moving on into the next game, and it's going to be Spell Druid for RDU.
It is indeed. This is the deck that RDU put faith in this week. He was arguing that he's pretty sure this is just the best 4th deck. RDU is not a believer in the Quest Warlock hype. He's made that very clear as well. And he just thinks that out of the options for your 4th deck, that Spell Druid is the one that you want to go to, which is something that I very heavily disagree with. But he is now going to put it on the line against the Quest Warlock from Kolento, in what I will admit is a pretty strong matchup from the Spell Druid side. The more Soul of the Forest, the better, I will say, and I believe RDU is only playing 1, which might just get him caught out. Kolento might be able to achieve some kind of full fatigue strategy if he's able to blast through that 1 Soul of the Forest efficiently, and the Ysera Dragons come out all in one lump, and you can just catch it all in one Twisting Nether. But I think it is very, very tough to engineer those kind of situations with the Quest Warlock in this matchup.
Yep, well, let's see how it kicks off game number 2. Let's see if Kolento mulligans the quest or not. I imagine no in this one. But RDU going for that Druid and having Wild Growth and Overgrowth in his opening hand means that he can ramp pretty heavily. And if you can get that Mount Cellar board down before Twisting Nether, then you're looking pretty good to take the game.
Reminder once again as well of the stakes here. This is our very last matchup in Division B, which means this is the one that will solve everything. And Kolento's Grandmaster's life is on the line. Not just the relegation bracket, automatic relegation is on the line for Kolento here. If he loses, we believe he will be automatically relegated alongside Pavel, whereas if Kolento wins, it will be Zim that gets relegated automatically alongside Pavel.
Yep, all the pressure, but at least the pressure's on Kolento to play his match well, as opposed to the pressure being watching someone else play a match that has an outcome on what you're going to do. So at least it's in his hands. You can go on here, just going to be tapping away as he has the plot twist ready and waiting to be played next turn to get the most out of it, honestly, and get that quest active as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and he doesn't really have anything in his hand that is essential to hold on to right now. Dark Skies is a consideration against an early Glowfly, but RDU's hand has not shown early Glowfly, it's just shown huge ramp. So it was a pretty low quality hand, no great surprise to see it being plot twisted. And this is already looking significantly better. Dark Skies comes back, but it's alongside Crazed Netherwing, it's alongside Abyssal Summoner for the tempo push. Much, much better looking hand for Kolento right now.
Yep, it's normally the response you want, isn't it? Clear the board and then follow up with a huge Abyssal Summoner. And then Druid does kind of have to pump so much removal into it to get rid that it just lowers the power of the follow-up outside of exactly like Ysera into an overflow.
Seems like a pretty easy Acidic Swampooze. I have often thought while playing this matchup that, you know, maybe tempoing out a minion here is actually worse than passing because I'm giving targets to my opponent's Mount Seller for spells to be shooting at, and Mount Seller really kind of does feel like the card that beats you in the matchup a lot of the time alongside Soul of the Forest. But I think that's probably just a little bit too fancy.
And sometimes you get this payoff, right? Of yes, it's allowed RDU to get the, I imagine he's going to go for that overflow, but you just saw two effective 0 mana spells be used without a Mount Seller, so at least that's something. And it's not as if this is like setting up lethal or anything. Both players are very comfortable on maximum life.
Or plot twist redraw for Kolento to finish the quest right now. As I mentioned, his hand is good. It's not incredible. His Crazed Netherwing isn't activated right now. So I think I would take quest activation over anything else here.
Yeah,
it's a chance to just win the game right now, like off this life tap.
The hand's good, but there were no 0 cost cards in it.
Right.
So change that. There's one. There's the goose.
Ugly looking redraw though. Hits
Means
the
the
Mally.
taps are better though.
Hits the Mally, which is probably the best card to tap into, and then he also hits Sense Demons alongside both Broodmothers as well. That Sense Demons will still give full value because he does still have 2 Moargs left. Okay. Piecing it together.
My hand is too full.
Well, here comes the Mount Seller for RDU, and this is the board that Kolento has to beat. One thing I will say as well about, although it's a little bit unfortunate with the Sense Demons, I do feel like Druid does so much damage to you on the turn they do stick the board, that I don't think that level of health matters a lot of the time, if you can't clear the board as well.
Sure.
Oh, twisting nether, but let's not forget, Warlock, although can draw 0 cost cards, does not have infinite mana, unlike Druid feels like a lot of the time. So Kolento is a ways off being able to twist in here.
He is, yeah.
And this is why the matchup can feel so difficult, because they get to make these boards before you really have the good enough responses for it active.
Right. He can toss out his Rain of Fire and then Sense Demons into Moarg Soulfire, which I believe is exactly 6 mana to be able to kill the Mount Seller here.
I wonder.
Does he ever craze Netherwing?
What does that achieve, though?
It softens up the Mount Seller for potential like better clean later, which I know later might not even come, he might just die, but it does kill off 2 of the 4 minions on the board.
Yeah.
And there's still a 5/5 on the board that can do something to follow up with.
I'd be more on board with you if he was then going into 8 on the following turn, so he could just Twisting Nether anything that happened, right? What? Why did Kolento do it this way?
Misplay? Oh, he throws the Malagos as well, okay.
He does do extra damage to the minions in play this way by getting the Moarg first and then playing his Rain of Fire, but I'm just not sure that's important. I guess softening up the Zigzor to 3 instead of 4 is important for the Crazed Netherwing on the following turn.
You do have the
interesting.
Moarg, though.
What to do?
Yeah, and obviously the big difference is he'd have a second Moarg in hand right now. Potentially, he might have discarded it to Soulfire and still have a Mali, in which case,
Yeah, that's
also
true.
good.
But yeah, now with both Moargs gone, Ardu also has a feeler for knowing that, well, yeah, your healing doesn't really exist anymore. Or at least not the power healing that the deck's capable of.
Yeah, he's also seen 2 plot twists, and he knows both Broodmothers are in hand as well.
Is this just a good overflow?
Time waits for no one.
That's right, heals up his minions, draws the card.
Yep.
Yep, I like it. Because Ardu, like I said now, with the limited healing, he can just go. He has double Savage Roar in hand. With just a couple more minions, he's going to just completely destroy Kolento in one turn.
Yeah. And he wants to find either Ysera or Glowfly Soul nice and quickly so he doesn't end up, being under threat of fatigue. Nice.
He's actually got lethal set up. If these minions aren't cleared and Kolento doesn't heal.
Wait, does he? 8.
Isn't double
4.
Savage Roar, Power of the Wild, Hero Power, Moonfire lethal? I think.
8 plus 6 is 14, plus 6 is 20, plus Power of the World is 22, plus Moonfire is 23, plus Hero Power is 24. Yeah, as long as that all fits mana-wise, you are correct, yes.
So
3,
spicy that, isn't it?
3,
Double
6,
Savage
8,
Roar is
Hero Power
insane.
10. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, it would have been. No.
My dream is yours.
But draws the Ysera, which is probably the best draw he could have possibly got there. Outside of Soul of the Forest, I guess. But Ysera
100%,
just
yeah.
as good. At least equal to Soul, I would say.
Kolento now needs to see as many dragons spawned as he can possibly muster. He wants all of them now, if at all possible.
With RDU wants like 1 or 2.
Yeah. There's 2. One more draw.
Oh. 3.
Okay. Kolento saying keep them coming. Yeah, it's probably just about perfect for RDU.
And also bear in mind, although the Malagos looks a bit wimpy, with double Savage Roar it doesn't really matter, right? Like, it's more about the bodies than the actual damage the minions have a lot of the time. We saw how close he was to lethal with just 2 medium-sized minions on the board, never mind, 5. But I think Kolento just has to twist in, right? I'm not sure how far away he is from an active Zephyrus, so he can still, of course, tap with this, but I don't really see outside of tapping to Caladan any other option to survive.
2 coils, 2 dark skies, I believe, is all he has left. He hasn't seen, or he hasn't played an Abyssal Summoner yet, but of course Kolento is on the 2 Questing Explorer, 1 Abyssal Summoner list. Yeah, and this is the disaster. If you were confused as to why we were saying, well, Kolento wants to see all of them, this is why, so he can then Twisting Nether all of them and they don't just immediately start coming back out again into play.
Tiny bit surprised he's using that to draw, but again, RDU doesn't really need much to stick to win this game. And fatigue isn't going to come into it with the power level of what he's got left as well. But he could have just had an extra 3-2.
So if this Mortal Coil draws Dark Skies, I believe his Zephyrus is then active.
Can still draw Caladan.
He can Zephyrus Brawl and win the Brawl. He can also just draw Caladan. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That is none of those things.
And with no Moargs, like I mentioned earlier, the power healing of the deck just is gone. The Broodmothers were drawn and used up early on with the double plot twist, and the double Moargs. One was burnt and one was used for the first Mount Seller.
So many possibilities.
Yeah, the Mohawk turn looks sketchy to me, for sure, from Kolento's side. He is still just inching there. The problem is, there's still lethal. But even if there weren't, and even if Kolento thought, okay, we can ration this out, I can get my Zephyrus active, I can draw Caladan, there's an extra Zixor as a wave of threats. There's still extra dragons that might not be getting drawn here, even though it looks like they are. And then there's still the Glowfly Soul of the Forest board that RDU hasn't even expended yet.
Yeah, I think, honestly, in the craziest of worlds here for Kolento, it would have to be active Zephyrus to clear next turn, into active Alexstrasza, into the absolute best dragons ever to have any... And even then, it's still going to be tough. But RDU, after a quick couple of pointing at the screen to work out the counting, realizes it is in fact lethal. And I think I mentioned to you the other day, because I've been playing Chonsu's Druid list, which has the double Savage Roar.
Okay.
And although you don't do it all the time, it surprised me the amount.
Double Roar on ladder, you crazy person.
Oh yeah, I love it. Although it doesn't happen all of the time, it happened a surprising amount of time where you just have 2 or 3 minions, a couple of Glowflies live, a couple of this lives, and you just double Savage Roar, and it's so much damage, your opponent just dies. And I'm not saying like, oh yeah, that's the battle plan, but it means that just these bits of board that's left over from a Mount Cell turn, from a Glowfly, from a Soul of the Forest, are still a potential huge damage threat for your opponent. So I am liking the double Savage Roar list, even though I think historically it seemed a little bit overkill, at least in this since the expansion rotation this year.
Yeah, and again, as much as my biases against Druid will come through in places, and as much as I am a fan of Quest Warlock, that matchup is a problem for a lot of lists that do come out. But Kolento now, unbelievably perhaps for some, is now staring deep into the abyss, because there is just a Demon Hunter left to win with for RDU, and if RDU does pick up a win with that Demon Hunter, that means that Kolento, one of the winningest players that we have ever seen in Hearthstone, the man who is known as K-God around the world, one of the players with the highest reputations for just the highest standard of play over multiple years, could end up being relegated right now from Grandmasters.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge deal, but I think this was going to be a similar outcome just in this season of Grandmasters anyway, with 3 total relegations per season, per region. We are going to see some great players fall, and we might be seeing this one today. RDU only 1 victory away from taking the series and pushing Kolento out, and he has Demon.
Raven. Oh, he did it! Okay. I know the situation is very serious, but honestly, nothing mattered more to me in that moment than whether Kolento was going to keep the quest. Alright, we've got ourselves a game.
The game is live.
Yeah.
Players have cards, those cards can be played, so we're going to play the game. Battlefiend, normally the go-to option there, if you're not expecting too many response tools from your opponent, or too many minions at least, but RDU could just go nuts as well. He does have a Chaos Strike to follow up with turn 2 if he really wants, so he could just go crazy and just coin double 1-drop.
The fires of vengeance burn bright.
Playing it slow. Kolento here has the Dream Curve. You can contest this board with Questing Adventurer. Questing Explorer.
Hey!
Can contest the board with Questing Explorer. This is a tempo-focused matchup, so maximizing your card draw is not necessarily the way to go. A lot of slow matchups, you would go tap on 2, tap on 3, Questing Explorer on 4. But in this case, just having the 2-3 to fight for board is much more important.
Less of a focus on maximizing card draw and more of a focus on maximizing not being dead.
And even then, that's hand dependent. I think even in this matchup, if you've got Questing Explorer and a Dark Skies in your hand, I might still just get with the life tap, you know, just to make sure my hand size is increasing as opposed to just staying the same size with a Questing Explorer.
And I actually also think that heavily depends on their opening as well, right? If they're not playing a 1-drop, then suddenly that Dark Skies might be more powerful much later in the game as opposed to an on-curve
I
plan.
grow
So,
impatient.
still always flexible, as always is the case. The rules of Hearthstone, or the rules of archetypes, etc. we talk about, there's always something that breaks that rule.
Mm-hmm.
Here, though, there is that sidekick available to just to boost the health a little bit. But if that's the case, does RDU ever consider Vulpera and the sidekick? Puts the health total on what, 7, 8, 9?
I think you generally want to be coining 5s in this matchup where available.
Went big.
I was having this conversation with Orange last night, and he seems to have a similar philosophy to me. I would like to talk a lot more in depth with him about it, but he said to me that he feels like the most important thing from the Demon Hunter side is just how much damage you can do in the mid game, not the early game, where it comes to like Warglaives, Metamorphosis, Skull of Gul'dan, keeping your resources high. So that to me is kind of a philosophy I agree with, where I think, you know, coin is better spent later.
Okay. I think that looks a little bit weirder because there is only a Warglaives for RDU. And I think there's a point of, well, coin Warglaives, hit them for 3. You know, like, is that powerful? Obviously, it gets it equipped. If you have 2 5-drops, then of course you accelerate the pace in which you get to play them both.
Right.
Which is the big deal, and I think the general point you're making, right, is often you have those a lot of those mid-game cards in hand.
But if you look at the way the curve played out, it's still coin 5 into 5, essentially, right? Is what he's done.
Yeah.
He's coined a 5 turn. And then he's still able to follow it up with Warglaives of Azzinoth.
This is where you might just say, okay, Soulfire, here's your job for this game. The downside of that is it makes its Abyssal significantly worse and might not even be playable if it gets discarded next turn. Well, that's a draw. Really needs a dragon, though. I think it is just Soulfire. I think it has to be.
I'm not seeing a better solution.
Because the problem is, like, Moag, Rain of Fire, Coil is pretty powerful. Can't do it all, obviously, because he lifetime.
Yeah.
To get the Moag. Moag, Rain of Fire is still insane next turn, if he keeps hold of it. Oh, that's unfortunate. But he can't just say, oh, well, I'll just pass and do it all next turn. Because he probably just dies.
Yeah,
There's a
for
ton
sure.
of damage coming his way if you leave that 4/4 up.
And this is that mid-game push that I've been talking about that's so crucial here, because now RDU does have that Warglaives
Consume
into
magic.
Skull of Gul'dan.
But the Consume Magic for the Abyssal,
I know.
absolutely huge.
Yeah.
So many.
Vulpera Scoundrel, why did we ever question you?
Oh, is this it, Raven?
It has to be the Abyssal, right, though? Like, oh!
He's gonna go.
Okay, he's gonna
Ooze,
go
Nether Breath instead. Yeah.
Oof, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But yet again, because of this, and because how far away he is even from Alexstrasza, and that Moag getting discarded, it means that Kolento's just so out of healing right now that yes, RDU lost a lot of damage, but look at what he's got in his hand.
RDU now 2, 3, 4, 5,
8.
6, 7, 8, but that most importantly gives him active Skull of Gul'dan this turn, which I think is super important for the situation. So make
And
sure
he's
he can
still-
keep the pressure up.
He still has the Consume Magic just sat there waiting for the if scenario, if there a taunt comes down. Normally, it's only Kayn that's the problem, which is 4 mana, deal 3, but ignore taunts. Now the 1 mana, go away, is the answer for that Consume Magic. RDU pushing a ton of damage, and this might just be the final few moments for Kolento in Grandmasters.
4, 6, 8, 10, 12 health in play. Craze Netherwing will be able to take care of most of it.
Coil.
But if he Rain of Fires first, there's then 1, 2, 3, 4 left.
Crazed Netherwing, coil into the other Broodmother is like
Sure.
the plan. It's a desperate plan, but it's a plan that does something. So he ends up healing for 1, going up to 9. After the damage from the Netherwing, of course.
Yeah, the alternative would be to Rain of Fire and Dark Skies. You can still fit a coil in with that, still draw the same card, but you don't deal the 3 damage to yourself. Chaos Strike up to 3, Hero Power up to 4. Oh boy.
Consume Magic does draw him another card,
It does.
but it does use up the silence. I don't know if it's worth it. Because RDU, or Kolento specifically, isn't going into, say, turn 9 where he can self-Alex.
Exactly,
RDU's seen so much healing. He's seen a Moab get tossed. I think it's worth holding, you know. It's more likely, I think, Kolento has a taunt than he does healing. Is that fair to say right now? Maybe not. He knows he has a Broodmother in hand, right? Because he would have seen it proc.
Yeah.
So he knows there is a taunt that exists in hand for Kolento. So that's just 100% knowledge there. And what can he draw into once he spends that 1 mana? Gladebound isn't playable anymore.
Right. Yeah, I agree with everything he said. I think he just redevelops, he puts him to 1, and then he holds on to the Consume Magic.
Yep, and I believe he does.
On the following turn.
Kolento's not going to proc Quest, so he doesn't even have a lifetime next turn, does he?
His quest is still some distance off, but there is that plot
Yep,
twist.
that'll help. Doesn't that get the quest active and might, draw in Broodmothers?
It would, yeah. It wouldn't be any development this turn, though. Kolento has to kind of logic out what this 1 remaining card is from RDU. He knows it's the Volpira spell, so he needs to start figuring out various things that would have killed him, wouldn't have killed him, would have been played, wouldn't have been played, till he can find a conclusion on what this 1 card is, and then figure out what the line is to take against it. Because we know putting a big taunt in play right now isn't going to be good enough. Kolento might not know that. Kolento might think huge taunt minion now, plus trade down this Battlefiend is huge because that consolidates his position against the board being redeveloped on the next turn.
He drew Caladan. He can Caladan this board if he wants. The Anasi Broodmother puts him up to 5. Can't life tap as well, though.
Just playing the taunt.
Oh!
We're right back where we started, Raven. There's 4 damage in play.
He does get an extra draw this turn, though.
Metamorphosis off the top. Oh, Raven, Kolento is gone.
Oh, the wave there from Kolento. Sorry to see you go, friend. But RDU takes the victory 3-0, and Kolento is going to be relegated from Grandmasters. Words I honestly did not think I would be saying, but this is what happens when we have a field this strong. Someone that is very good has to go out, especially when we look at the strength of the European region.
Yeah, so now as we conclude Division B, I believe that means that we are saying goodbye to Pavel, and we are saying goodbye to Kolento, as you saw there, him just giving the wave. And yeah, that upsets me a little bit because I'm a huge fan of Pavel. I think he's phenomenally entertaining. And for me, Kolento is exactly the same, right? Like he might not be everyone else's cup of tea in terms of entertainment, but there's a reason why I wanted to film that, guys. I've got to watch multiple times because I think he's great. I have loved interviewing him. You know, I've loved essentially what was just mental sparring sessions with Kolento, where you had to try and at least get something entertaining out of him, where he's just going to bury you as much as possible. I've enjoyed that enormously over the years. I've enjoyed the periods of time where Kolento was one of the best players in the world, arguably the best player in the world. And it's shocking, honestly, to be losing a former world champion and a player with the caliber of Kolento here from Division B.
Yeah, really tough, and definitely miss seeing them. And like I said, pretty much just echo everything that you've said, but especially because I've got to hang out with Pavel quite a lot. And not only is he fun to watch on camera, he's super fun to be at events, even more so, even because it's just never boring when he's there. So pretty crazy, and I hope he continues on with Hearthstone at least to some extent in the future, as I would love to see him at some events going forward.
Yeah, and on a lighter note, I'll issue a correction for that series. We were talking about prepping I-Beam, which is obviously nonsense when you stop and think about it for a second.
Right.
We're just complete idiots. RDU played that turn absolutely fine. Our apologies. He was a deserving winner of the game and the series. But yeah, you see the much more important factor here of the way that these Division B matchups are broken down, and I do believe it leaves us in the very unfortunate situation of having to say goodbye to Kolento, having to say goodbye to Pavel, and I believe that means it's now Tice and Zim who are in the relegation bracket, with Tice in 5th place and Zim in 6th, which does actually matter in terms of the overall seeding. So I believe that is our final breakdown as we go, and we now move on to the last piece of information that needs solving, which is Hunter Ace versus Swids here in Division A. Hunter Ace still has that relegation bracket looming over him as well, with Silvername watching on with great interest as well as the other player involved, who might just find himself safe here after Hunter Ace's result.
Yeah, and I do like the way that the day is shaped up for us, at least, where we get to finish on this match. And don't get me wrong, this match is important, but it's just a bit of a lighter note, as there is no auto-relegation in Division A. There is an outcome where the two of the Division A players play in the relegation bracket, which is going to be played out next weekend. But for now, we don't have to say goodbye to anyone else today. I'm not good with goodbyes, and we just got through them, so I'm done.